wellness friends. Today I'm here with Jessica Lichaa. And Jessica is a yoga instructor in Lexington, Kentucky. And before we, off camera, she told me she is a fascia nerd. And I have never met a fascia nerd. So I'm happy to talk to you today about fascia and how you work with people, individuals with their problems, and also the classes that you teach. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about your yoga studio, your class that you have. You teach here in Lexington, Kentucky. What's the name of your studio?
Radically Rooted.
Radically Rooted. Great name for it. And you teach classes every day? You teach every day? Okay. You have a website?
Yep, liveradicallyrooted.com.
All right. We'll link that in the description below so that people interested in coming to see you can find you easily.
Great.
So let's talk a little bit about what you do. Yoga has become a very popular medium for people. There's lots of types of yoga. When I kind of got started back, Bikram yoga was kind of getting moved from California this way, and the Bikram classes were really hard. So people who come from an athletic background, we would say, well, yoga is for women, it's not hard. And then I took a Bikram class and realized, no, yoga is way harder than anything that we do, particularly if you do it correctly. So I have a very strong appreciation of yoga. I know that there are different varieties of yoga. So tell me a little bit about the yoga that you teach and some of the specialties that you do.
Sure, yeah. I've been doing yoga for like 21 years now. And so it's been very helpful for a lot of different things, ailments that I've had throughout the time. But then it came to a point where I was having back pain frequently, and that I then had to change the way I practiced yoga. And also I suffered from depression. And so I started to learn a lot about the fascial system and how it's connected to the nervous system and really all of the other systems. And so I started to learn how to engage with my feet, for example, in a particular way to like wake up the nerve cells in my feet and to lift and tone the arches and to stand in a way that my joints and everything was aligned so that tension could start to release out of my system. Because the way I was practicing, I was building tension in my body, you know.
So do you think the back pain was coming from your yoga? You're doing some of the yoga? Do you think it was?
I think that the yoga was kind of compounding, there were already issues.
Pre-existing.
Yeah, just like, because the mind and body are connected. So stress, if you have stress in the environment, that's going to settle into the body. And unless you open up your fascial system, then that is going to just keep compounding and building pressure over time.
May I ask you to just explain to our viewers what fascia is for those who are unfamiliar with what we're talking about? So can you tell me a little bit about what fascia basically is?
Sure. So it's a very complex and biodynamic system.
You are fascinated with it.
Yes, it's meant to, it's a self-regulating organism. So it's everywhere in the body. And it's underneath the skin, and there's different layers of the fascial system. It's kind of like a 3D matrix made of collagen, and elastin is in there, and there's a lot. It's a colloid, so it's like a gel substance. And so like when we don't move a lot or certain parts of our body doesn't move, then there are these cells in there called fibroblasts that create collagen, that produce more collagen, and then the collagen can build up, and that's what happens with scar tissue, things of that sort, but even if we a lot of us, our nervous systems are conditioned in a certain way, right? Our DNA informs, and our life experiences, our epigenetics, all that informs the resonance and the way that our nervous system reacts and responds to environment, and that all participates, or it all gives form or shape to the fascial system. So the system is everywhere in the body. It encapsulates every muscle. So it's really, before scientists thought it was just packing material. So they didn't really look at it, right? They didn't really try to understand what it was. up until more recent times, like I would say the last 20 years, they've really been starting to develop research into the fascial system and what it is, what its purpose is. And that's how we're moving from this Newtonian field of physics into quantum physics, where we're learning more about the molecular level of things and all that's happening, within the system. So everything's there in the fascia, and it's what creates connectedness between, say, your big toe to your pituitary gland, right? Because there's a neural pathway that connects all the way through there. But also, it's what can feed separation through the systems and feed dysfunction of the nervous system, of the endocrine system, digestive, like every single system, circulatory system. If there's a holding somewhere in the system and your fascia is tight and things aren't able to move and glide, then there's blocked energy, and then our systems are offline. They're not connected.
Right. I tell people, if they come in, plantar fasciitis is something that's very, very common that I see. And when people come in and I try to explain to them basically what it is, I say, just imagine saran wrap around a piece of steak. So the fascia just kind of encapsulates it. But it can become inflamed. It's its own, like you said, it's its own entity, but it can create a lot of pain. It can create a lot of issues, and then once you have pain, as I'm sure you know, then the pain can create a lot of other problems throughout the body. So as far as physical therapy and things like that go, fascia is one of those things that you have to deal with daily. So I understand that with you probably deal with it daily with your clients. So tell me a little bit about some of the things you like to do that help your clients deal with their fascial issues.
Yeah, so I really love to focus on teaching people how to move the endpoints of the body, like, for example, the hands. So, usually in a yoga class, there's not a lot of awareness brought into the hands, like the specific movement. And like I'll see there are students that, they can hardly spread their fingers open. And that's a fatigued nervous system, right? Because that fascia is frozen and holding. And so there are mitochondria in those cells, because also the fascia runs into the nucleus of every cell. I recently read that in a book about fascia. And I mean, that's just amazing, because in the nucleus of our cells there's our DNA too, and it's the software of our living
the
system.
mRNA. I mean, that's where we are now, a messenger RNA with the COVID vaccine. So it's reprogramming.
Yeah, and waking it up. So starting to even reaching, into these mounds underneath the fingers, right? And opening that system up starts to get, a lot of students get energy, like really quickly awakening through their system, and so really being more embodied. So radically rooted is about being embodied, and through the fascial system, because the fascial system is also a sense organ. So it is, when it's in a healthy state, you're able to feel it, right? You're able to sense what's happening interiorly within the body. And so I'm all about waking up the fascial system, because that's also where our awareness of self lies, in our own energetics, right, of being. So it's just about creating more malleability in this system, which translates into the nervous system, and then all of these different, like, consciousness, and we could go really deep down lots of deep rabbit holes maybe another time, but yeah.
So we're waking it up. I use that term often when I talk about people who need to wake up their nerves, or their vastus medialis after a knee surgery is not firing. So I say we got to wake up the nerves. So how do you engage people to wake up their fascia?
So really the endpoints are key. So like if you're trying
to... Do you use props? Do you use...
we use these therapy balls. We can use therapy balls, but also just like more like intentional movement.
Okay.
Of like reaching into these places. Let's see here. So we do a lot of movement, like say to just get energy flowing. So the joints, we move joints a lot,
Okay.
right? That's going to help awaken the fascia from the two different places.
And sometimes people, they misinterpret when you move a joint a little bit of initial pain, but then you tell them to keep going, and the pain subsides. Is that sort of what you...
Yeah, so that's the thing. The fascia, when you start to move your fascia and become more aware of it, it can be uncomfortable.
Sure.
Because there's so much being stored in there. There's so much stagnation, and holding. But you really want to just go through that. So I have a class called Fascial Release and Flow where we work through the whole system in a 75-minute class. And so it's about getting all the different parts of the body and systems online and integrated together, right?
Is there a certain order that you go to do this? So you say you start at the endpoints. Do you always start at the feet and then work your way up, or do you start at the head and work your way down?
Yeah, I can go from up or down, and it really just depends. Sometimes I start in the belly area, like using this ball, this soft ball. We lay on it and breathe into it. So there's, usually I go into the class thinking about how I want to hack into the system, right? To get things to regulate and awaken, to help get that stress response shut off, right, and to awaken the ventral system, which is where things are flowing and your cells are connecting and cooperating. But to answer your question about getting muscles to fire, for example, if you're wanting to fire into your hamstrings or your quads, in your standing poses, the more engaged you can be in your feet. So lifting and spreading the toes, connecting down from the outer and the inner edges of the feet, anchoring into the heel, waking up the mounds, big toe mound to pinky toe mound. Really, that down below is where the system is. The cells are going to start to communicate from here through the neural pathways up into the muscle. Like, you can't just be there and say, I'm going to engage here. That's the problem before. The way I practiced was that I was doing these poses, but the muscles weren't firing. So it wasn't skillful, right? It was just my body's fascia was tensioning to support me from falling over with gravity, right? But it wasn't a skillful way of being in the pose. Now I can get my pelvic floor muscles to fire through the way I engage in my feet. I can get my core muscles to fire from just standing a particular way.
When you're working with a client, a lot of people have a hard time visualizing what you're trying to get them to do. Like you're trying to get them to visualize and engage a certain muscle. And it's funny, I have people who are a little bit older, and they've obviously gotten through life just fine, but when I ask them to make a certain movement, they have a hard time making that movement. How do you teach someone how to engage with a muscle or how to engage with their fascia to make a certain movement? What's your teaching method to do that? Because there's an art to doing that.
Well, it's waking up the system.
Right.
Right? The whole system. Or just, for example, if you're wanting them to, give me an example of something that you're trying to teach.
So, scapular retraction. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Scapular retraction is where I want them to have their arms straight and retract the scapula without bending the elbow. And most people instinctively, what they want to do is they want to do this. Okay, they want to pull their elbows back and retract the scapula.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, no, I want you to keep your elbows extended and then pull the scapula back. A lot of people don't know how to do that because it's not part of their instinctual movement. And what I've said is, we're all wired a certain way. We all have the wiring, if you could just imagine wiring in an electrical box. Point A goes to point B. We all have muscles that can kind of wiggle your ear, but very few people can wiggle their ear. I can't teach you, I can't tell you how to engage that muscle to wiggle your ear, but some people have that ability. So something simple like scapular retraction, we all can do it, but it's hard for me to teach somebody how to do it. So that's an example of what I have.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so what's happening is the fascia is frozen, right?
We talk about frozen shoulders and things like that all the time.
And so tension is really freeze.
Yes,
so
it is.
Those cells in that tense fascia, tense tissue, right, aren't able to receive sensory input. So by opening up the system, so I would recommend doing some arm movement, right? That's going to help open. You can see how it kind of opens up the back body. You know, I would do movements to help clear that fascia in the back line so they can actually sense it more.
Right.
And feel it, and then those nerve cells can start to fire. I would, work with the system that way.
I've done some of the like some tactile things where I will actually mobilize the scapula so that they can feel what the retraction should feel like, and sometimes that has helped. So mobilization of a joint is good. Do you do a lot of joint mobilization in your classes? Is that some of the things that you like to do, like with the hips and spine mobilization?
Well, I find that if you are embodied in your feet, you have integrity in your foundation, the body is going to self-regulate, right? So that fascial system comes online and everything kind of mobilizes in a beautiful way all on its own. Right. So I don't really focus on cues that, fire this, fire that. I'm focusing on the feet, for example, or if you're in down dog, really getting your hands pressing into the floor, right, pulling up through the armpit, so like working from the end point up through the system, because people can't fire things.
Right.
Like you were saying.
Well, let's talk about feet, okay? I'm a great person to talk to because I have terrible feet.
They're not terrible. They just need some help in self-regulating.
Well, they need lots of help. And one of the things that I have seen with patients is when you're doing trigger point on feet, it's very uncomfortable. But a lot of people, let me put myself in this category, I can't separate my toes at all. Okay? If you were to have me barefoot and say, okay, now spread your toes, nothing. When I try to spread my toes, my big toe goes up, but none of the other toes separate. So sometimes I wear toe spreaders. Excellent. Okay, just to get that feeling for it. But it's very, very painful initially, and then it gets better. But what do you do to get people, such as myself, engaging with their feet so that they can get the whole fascial system to start to self-regulate?
Yeah, the toe spacers are great. I recommend doing those daily.
Okay. How long?
I would go up to start with 3 to 5 minutes,
whatever
you can tolerate, but then build a little bit more. I would do, so we do a lot in classes, threading our fingers between our toes. So we do a lot of things to like wake the feet up, right, to get it online. So squeezing and holding the heel and moving up and down to open up the back chain of the body, taking hold of the top of the foot, moving it up and down to get the front line, because the top of the foot connects fascially all the way through the front body up and through the TMJ, right? And so that's the thing. If people have TMJ issues, they need to focus on the tissues through the whole continuum, not just this area, because our bodies are like a vessel for energy to flow and move.
Sure.
And like my students feel energy clear out of their hands, out of their feet, out of these places. It's a radical experience, but it's our potential, right? So that's that self-regulation that's coming online and happening. So I would walk on the outer edges of the feet, the inner edges of the feet, walk on your mounds a lot, the balls of your feet.
Question, because a lot of people like specific things. So the toe spreaders you recommend. How about walking with the toe spreaders? Do you have the people just lie with the toe spreaders, or do you actually have them get up and try to put weight while the toe spreaders are there?
If you can. I used to wear toe spreaders a long time ago because I had a bunion removed 12 years ago or so. So but my toe spacers, I wouldn't have been able to walk because they were clunky. But I guess if you can walk, I would say maybe get in your mounds, like lift your heels and root into the balls of the feet underneath the toes.
Right.
You know, clearing those mounds, those tissues are powerful, because once that gets cleared, you know, that really can send communication up pretty quickly through the system. So the heels and the mounds of the feet, I would start with waking those up first.
What would you recommend for people who have neuropathies in their feet? Okay, because that's an issue that diabetic neuropathies are problematic, and then you can have neuropathies from trauma, knee surgery, hip surgery, you can get neuropathies. So I get a lot of people that say, I'm losing my balance because I don't feel my feet engaging with the floor. So what are some things that people can do to start to feel more sensation in their feet of the type that you're supposed to feel, not just the numbness?
Yeah, I would do that gentle work we've been talking about, working in the feet in that way as well. But also just hands-on massage around the ankle joint, moving the foot to get the ankle to move so that fluids can start to move down. You know, even like brushing the legs, the backs of the knees, and moving that down just to get the system more connected. Also, like the therapy balls rolling into the feet can be really helpful.
Because a lot of people can't do self-massage on their feet because they can't get their foot either to them hands, or they can't get their hands down to their feet.
Yeah, so that, or having a partner do
Right.
work, holding just the heels. Also, so I do body work with people, and I'm working in a unique way with the body. And so I work with the endpoints, so like say the fingers and the toes, and not just holding them, but actually holding them all the way down to the joint and just gentle movement in circles. Because, like I said, the big toe connects into your pituitary or pineal gland. So, like, as I clear people's big toes, it's releasing energy all the way up through, they feel it release into their head.
Right.
So that pathway is clearing. So doing that, too, can be really amazing for just clearing out the stagnation and getting those nerve cells to fire up through the system more.
What is your opinion about vibration? So I've put people on vibration plates who have neuropathy just so that they can start getting sensation. Is that something that you think is helpful for people with neuropathies? Is it like a vibroplate or something that stimulates it in that regard?
I think that can be good for the whole system, for the whole fascial system. Any ailment that we have, it's in the fascial system. So that's the beautiful thing, is that when you change the fascial system, you're creating change multi-dimensionally in your human experience, right? But also, lion's mane is a supplement that's really good for neuropathy. So I have had people take lion's mane for that, and also it's interesting because the lion's mane also supports regeneration of the hippocampus, and that's the part of the brain that degenerates, right, with Alzheimer's and things of that. So that's where our short-term memories are, but also our nerve cells, because lion's mane helps promote nerve cell growth factor, and the nerve cells are directly connected into the hippocampus. So it's like the body-mind experience, right? Memory is in the body. It's not just in the brain. And nothing is in the brain. The body is the software. The brain is the hardware system. So if you're having dysfunction in your ways of seeing, if you're stuck in a negativity bias, you know, if you're depressed, if you have anxiety, if you worry a lot, it's because of the energy in the body needs help regulating out.
Yeah, I've been, in the last couple of years, I've been, I'm a nerd too, but I'm got lots of nerdy issues. But one of the things that I've been fascinated with is restorative or regenerative medicine, and how science has kind of gone to understanding cell growth and death, and how to manage that a little bit better, because when cells are in their last days of viability, they start to emit toxicity or toxins that other cells can kind of sense, and then it can affect a part of your body. And ultimately, cancers can maybe evolve from stuff like that. So I was talking about the cells, and then they kind of emit, but they call it senescence. So the cells that are no longer viable, but the regenerative, the restorative medicine, stem cells, all that is stuff that's coming, but it all starts with the cell, okay? So like you said, we are a human. We see each other as one entity, but really we're trillions and trillions of just smaller entities that kind of make up who we are. So, and that's the fascia that you're talking about there. So back to your practice and how you're working with people. So the toe spreaders for the feet, you endorse maybe some vibration plates and things like that. Massage for the feet. How do you feel about stimulation through cold, stimulation through heat, things like that? Is that something that you've ever used or have an opinion about?
Yeah, I think starting to train in cold showers is very
Oh,
beneficial.
it's so hard.
It is hard, but I mean, just even start at the end of your shower, just
It's
going
still hard.
a little cooler, but it's a really great way to train in resiliency, right? To create. So
I stink at resiliency.
well, then you want to do that, Kelly. You are a powerful being. You can do it.
Oh, do you do the cold showers? I mean, is that something that
I turn it on to cold every time at the end. Some
Do you
days.
scream?
No, I breathe
I scream.
and I move my body. It depends on how regulated you are, right? That's why you want to do fascia care, because the more you get your tissue soft, that's where your resiliency comes in. You have that malleability, right? You're not rigid in a way like, oh, I can't do that. I have to be this way, right? But you can titrate into different experiences. So, but the cold temperature is really great for the vascular system. I found that if I have tension and maybe some low back pain from the tension, if I do a hot shower, it actually makes it worse.
Right.
Because, in the cold shower, it opens up my system and it can clear it all the way out. So that's why I promote cold showers. But I want to say, too, we have to move the tissue in the leg as well with plantar fasciitis. We can't just focus on the foot.
Right.
So, like, these balls are great for rolling the backs of the thighs, the different lines of them, the calves into the Achilles, and the front of the shins, the fronts of the legs, and then using your hands to kind of move everything to get it fleshed together and integrated from like upper leg down, clearing back of the knee, all around the knee joint and the ankle joint, everything.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I tried to get people to do a 30-day cold shower challenge, and I participated in that. And most people, after a couple of days, they said, no, I'm not doing it anymore. It's not for me. And I would have said that too after a couple of days because I did not enjoy it. But I did do what you said, which is I got in and took basically a normal shower and then would turn it cold at the end. And I had hoped to get to where we could do an ice bath challenge just kind of at the end where you would get into an ice bath. Never made it there. Brian, did you do the cold showers?
Yeah, I really like it. I like the cold protocol.
Okay, so I want to try it again.
Yeah, go through. Give it a couple weeks.
It's just so hard. And when you were talking about soft, that's me. I'm soft. I can't take it. I'm spoiled. I like,
You like a certain felt experience.
Yes, and the cold.
It's not that.
I walk around the house with an air conditioner on, and I call it my shawl. I put on a little jacket to, because I don't want to be cold, so I put this on. So I'm definitely adverse to the cold, but I know it's good. Every time I did it, I felt great.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
I felt great.
So
Now, that just
on-
means I'm stupid. See, when you know that it feels good and you don't do it, you're stupid. So that's what I am.
No, but you want to tap into that wisdom, right? So the wisdom is doing that which you know is going to make you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
I know.
And avoiding things that we know that make us feel bad.
No. Goodbye, pizza.
Yeah, cut out that gluten and dairy.
Okay, so how does that affect the fascia?
You can edit that out.
How does the
Uh-huh.
diet affect the fascia? Because, obviously all your cells have to have nutrition, and they like to have good stuff, but I give it bad stuff.
Yeah, so the nervous system, right? You want to look at the foods you eat. We know there are foods that cause inflammation.
Yeah.
Inflammation is a fight-flight response of the nervous system. So it's activating your sympathetic nervous system. It's keeping you in that state. In that state, we don't have malleability. We are stuck in a negativity bias. So I keep going back to consciousness because you have to realize that the way that we are seeing the world and ourselves and our lives is a fabrication from being in these stress responses. So it's not truth. We gotta wake up, So, yes. So gluten wreaks havoc on the gut health. It tears down the barrier, blood-brain barrier. So you get leaky gut. It's bad. So many people get so resistant when I talk about this because they don't want to give up their gluten, right? The microbiome. Another thing is the microbiome. Do they realize that microbiome outnumber human cells 10 to 1?
Mm-hmm.
10 to 1. So your microbiome is informing your habits.
Yeah, so there really is an alien living inside you.
Yeah, and so like when you're talking about the cold shower, part of that is the microbiome in your gut that doesn't want to get regulated.
Mine really doesn't.
No, the microbiome, they're fierce little
Yes,
bastards. Can I say that? Oh, little
they
ones.
are. You just did.
I like to call them that. But so I like to think about getting power, like soul power. I've been sugar-free for 3.5 years.
Oh, my.
And I went without sugar for the first year. And, I had no joint pain. I used to get knee pain from running and things. I was in the best health ever. And then so a year after I went sugar-free, I had a meal, and it had sugar in the sauce. I didn't know it at the time. 2 hours later, my knee hurts.
Okay.
And then that night, I have a dream about chocolate cake. I'd never been a fan of chocolate cake or cake. And then I wanted that chocolate cake in my dream. Then the next day, I'm driving to the studio, and I drive past a Coca-Cola truck, and I'm tasting and smelling and feeling the fizz of the Coke. That sugar bug woke up in my gut, and it's trying. I had cut sodas out in like 20-something years ago because I had cavities, and I was embarrassed when I went to the dentist. And I was like, they're like, it's the Mountain Dew, because I would drink that for breakfast and my Snickers bar.
Oh, we should have been married. You're the perfect girl for me. So, in all seriousness, how do you help people who can't be helped, like me? Yes.
I empower them.
Okay.
They can be helped. They can help themselves. It's about awakening soul power, right? So realizing that you're not embodying your potential, but there's another version of you. Like if you believe in the multiverse theory, I love that as a framework to just like nourish myself. Like, oh, there's a version of Jessica somewhere else that is
Brian,
more elevated.
You're thrilled with this conversation. Brian's over there. He's thrilled with this. This is right down his alley. Let's talk about the multiverse, Brian.
Yeah, that's where the possibilities lie, right? And we get out of this 3D matrix of like delusion here of planet Earth, right now in this
I know, the Matrix
year
4 is coming out.
2021.
The Matrix 4 is coming out very soon. I'm very excited.
So yeah, I just try to tap into these other dimensions of consciousness, right? Of like possibility for Jessica to experience. Because, I'll be honest, I used to get suicide ideation frequently because that's the way my nervous system was conditioned, right? That was my ancestral programming. Like, it's been in my maternal lineage, my mom's lineage for
Right.
probably thousands of years.
Right.
And so, I've done a lot of like energy purging, like you could call them exorcisms of energies releasing. That's what the beauty of the fascia. When you open it and create the malleability, you really can heal multidimensionally. You start to tap in because those cells and the DNA, everything is more online, right? So you can become the master of your creation, of what you have been given.
Well, I know that so yoga, meditation, all the types of variations of that. One of the things, the Wim Hof is something that we enjoy to kind of learn more about. But I found that the emotional outlet that created for so many people who had never had an emotional release, all of a sudden these guys, football players, macho,
they're human,
and all of a sudden they're weeping when they go through this. And so that's what you're trying to say is that to release it, to purge it, and then you rebuild, right? You release it.
You get space. Yeah, you create space, and then you can really touch into who you are. Right? That's where our potential is. Yeah, and the breath works because of the way it moves the fascial system, right? It creates interior movement in a radical way. So I also teach Kundalini yoga classes where we're doing a lot of pranayama, different types of pranayama, and energetic movement practices to get energy to clear, right, and to awaken the electromagnetic field.
I've got one more question for you. I've taken up way too much of your time, but one of the things that, so again, I understand what I'm supposed to do, and I try to impart that to some people, but how much time should we dedicate in a day to some of these practices? Because a lot of people say, well, what you and Jessica have talked about here, I get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and I've got to do this until noon before I'm finished with all this stuff. So how much time would you say we should allocate to this type of self-care per day? I know that's going to vary from person to person, but if you could tell somebody, look, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes is a good way to start. You'll start seeing benefit, and then you'll want to do it more. But
yeah, for sure. I would say even just 5 minutes, if you have just 5 minutes a day.
5 minutes.
You can start anywhere, right? There's no protocol. There's no right or wrong. But also, I would recommend being more aware of your body in your lived experience, right? So like right now we're sitting. So Kelly, I want you to bring your right hand behind your head.
Okay.
And I want you to lift up through your sternum.
Okay.
Get your heels under your knees. Walk your feet forward. Yeah, keep going forward. Feet a little wider apart. So we want our joints aligned because that's how the fascia do you feel how you're a little more upright?
Yeah.
So pull that elbow back a little bit and press your head back into your hand and your hand into your head. Draw your occiput upward so chin is slightly down. Just breathe here. Just tap your chest some, just to wake up the sternum as you breathe. Just getting connected back to your own energy. And then coming down to the base of the sternum, little taps here. Feel your pelvis, just letting yourself ground, so try not to resist that.
I might fall asleep.
What are you noticing?
I'm much more relaxed.
Yeah, see, so our posture has everything to do. So this is helping to get your ventral system online. That's our power, right, when we're in ventral.
Right.
So the hunched forward, that's what is called dorsal vagal, more where it's more of our reptilian brain is online. You can release that down.
It must be a snake.
Yeah, there's a lot of reptiles out there.
Hunched over.
Yeah, so you want to get upright, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want your front body to be in command, your heart.
Yep.
In Buddhism, Buddhist psychology, they talk about it's not the mind, it's heart-mind, the chitta. So we want our heart and to be the one communicating, because the heart actually is a brain in itself and was developed before the brain and the head in the embryo.
Right.
It starts with the gut, which is a brain, and then the heart, and then the brain and the head.
We did a podcast with a Buddhist, not that long ago.
Yeah, not that long.
We tend to like those kind of people, don't we?
Yeah, I would love to come back and talk more about that too, because
Yeah.
I can meditate some days up to 3 hours. So
Oh, you should go. He has a great spot.
Yeah,
and
the
it's
Furnace
a
Mountain.
beautiful place up there. Just neat. And who would have ever known it?
yeah,
I guess
that's
the people that
beautiful.
were going knew it, but we didn't know it. Okay, Jessica. So Brian and I are going to come to one of your classes.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to join the multiverse.
Yeah, we
And-
can even do a private together.
And you've got to really get out all your tools for us because we're a mess. But I want to thank you very much for coming. I think we learned a lot today, and hopefully we can do this again and get deeper into the weeds than we got today.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. Thanks,
See you next
Brian.
time. Thank you very much.